Discover the hidden power, how just 1 hour a day can transform your life in amazing ways. Emily Thompson tripped over an uneven floorboard as she rummaged through her grandmother's attic, dust motes swirling in the weak light. Boxes towered around her, relics of a time barely remembered, each one a potential treasure. The air was thick with stale memories and the scent of forgotten dreams. She was searching for holiday decorations, but her heart was heavy with one distinct desire: an escape from her life that felt like a never-ending cycle of work and family obligations. As a dedicated schoolteacher, she gave everything to her students, often at the cost of her own aspirations. Each evening brought only hours of grading papers under the harsh light of her kitchen, the dark shadows creeping into her heart alongside her coffee's bitter taste. She tried to recall the last moment she'd taken for herself, but that memory belonged to a younger version before motherhood had swallowed her whole. Her grandmother's words echoed in her thoughts, pushing at the edges of her resolve: dedicate just an hour a day to your passions, and you'll find yourself again. As she leafed through an old journal, her breath caught. Her grandmother had meticulously documented her journey of self-discovery, revealing that each brushstroke of paint had vibrated with newfound purpose. A warm flicker of hope ignited in Emily, but just as quickly snuffed out by the fear of delving back into a world long abandoned. Could she really carve out that precious time? Would her children understand? Torn between her passion and responsibilities, she hated the feeling of being stuck, slipping further from her own identity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily embraced the idea of stealing that hour, but each hopeful brushstroke faced the skepticism of former peers, the echo of harsh critique from mentors that felt forever etched in her heart. Doubts crept in like unwelcome shadows. What if the art community didn't welcome her back? What if her need for self-fulfillment jeopardized her family's stability? Her hands trembled as she dipped the brush into paint, every splash of color mirrored her turmoil. The local art exhibition loomed just weeks away, and with it, a chance to reclaim the vibrant spirit that had once pulsed inside her. She could almost feel the colors embracing her as she painted late into the night, but every triumphant stroke was met with guilt and uncertainty. Was this pursuit a selfish act that would alienate her children? Just when she thought clarity flickered on the horizon, her heart plummeted. Her old mentor, the same one who had dismissed her talent years ago, had been announced as a judge for the exhibition. Her pulse quickened. Would she cower in the shadows of their shared past, or could she rise, paintbrush in hand, ready to shatter her insecurities like glass? Tension coiled tightly around her heart, and she stood at the precipice of a decision that could define not only her future but that of her children as well. The stakes had never been higher. Emily stood in the dim light of the attic, her grandmother's journal still clutched tightly in her hands. The ink faded with time, spoke of dreams tangled with reality, each page a whisper of encouragement that echoed through the years. This moment, engulfed in dust and shadows, illustrated how dreams can slip away unnoticed, crushed under the weight of responsibility. Each crease in the journal felt like a tug at Emily's soul, reminding her of the artist she once aspired to be, before life's complexities diverted her course. The old walls seemed to close in as uncertainty clawed at her mind. The upcoming art exhibition loomed like an insurmountable mountain, its peak visible, yet obscured by clouds of doubt. She remembered her mentor's critical words that still echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of her past. Could she rise above her fears? Or would her past mistakes suffocate the flames of her rekindled passion? She motioned towards her paintbrush, trembling slightly as she dipped it into vibrant hues. The cacophony of responsibilities filled her thoughts, preparing meals, helping with homework, leading her students through history's complexities. Yet these bygone moments of art and color started to call to her, beckoning her to reclaim her identity, a whisper urging her to step beyond the threshold of convention. Determined to break free from the restraints of her busy life, she decided to dedicate specific hours to her art's sacred time that would belong solely to her. It felt extravagant, almost selfish, but she envisioned those painted canvases transforming her anxiety into tangible expression. This hour would serve as a manifestation of her aspirations and the dreams she thought long buried. In the days that followed, Emily took those tentative steps. Struggling to balance painting with parenting, she carved time during early mornings or late nights, squeezing creativity into her schedule like a secret treasure. Each moment she created solidified her worthiness in an arena she had long abandoned. Doubts still lingered. What if her work wasn't good enough? But with every brushstroke, she uncovered a hidden reservoir of resilience. Yet, lurking behind her newfound routine was the nagging concern of whether her commitment to art would impact her children negatively. They were her first priority, but could nurturing her passions ultimately benefit them as well? The dilemma gnawed at her, a constant reminder that the scale of personal fulfillment needed a careful balance. One evening, as she painted by the faint light of a solitary bulb, the realization struck her like a lightning bolt. A surge of clarity washed over her. Her children would witness their mother embracing her passion, awakening a sense of purpose that she had inadvertently dimmed for too long. Perhaps this endeavor was not only about her but about demonstrating to her children the importance of self-love and perseverance. She was setting a precedent for them, allowing them to witness the pursuit of joy amidst life's chaos. But in the back of her mind, the specter of her mentor lingered. What if she faltered at the exhibition? Would her painting evoke the scorn she once faced? The thought churned her stomach, but amidst the turmoil, a fierce determination ignited. She could either diminish her worth or reclaim her power. The choice loomed large, ready to shape her narrative. The night before the submission date, as anxiety swirled within, she caught sight of her grandmother's journal perched on the desk, a soft beacon in the darkness. With renewed resolve, she opened it to a passage she had once overlooked: create unfettered by fear, for that is where true art begins. But could she overcome the memories of her past failures to step boldly into this next chapter? The door to the exhibition awaited her, but was she prepared to face the judgment not just of others, but of herself? With a determined breath, Emily prepared for the next pivotal moment in her journey, the moment when she would meet her mentor and confront the shadows of her past. Emily stood in front of the mirror, applying a final touch to her makeup. The reflection staring back at her was both familiar and foreign, a blend of the weary mother and the aspirational artist. The crisp, elegant lines of her dress contrasted sharply against the backdrop of her cluttered hallway. She felt a tight knot materialize in her stomach as she fiddled with her necklace, each movement a reminder of the weight that this exhibition carried. It wasn't just about displaying her art, it was about reclaiming a part of herself long muted by fear. The anticipation of facing her mentor, Robert, stirred a storm of emotions within her. Memories of his withering critiques haunted her, a gallery of failures flash flooding her mind. But today was different. Today, she would confront those ghosts. The driving question shifted from fear to a desperate urge to unravel the complex threads of her identity. She wasn't just an artist, she was a mother, a teacher, a resilient being intent on rediscovering the joy buried within her. As she approached the venue, the magnitude of the event settled heavily on her shoulders. The buzz of the crowd seeped into her consciousness, merging excitement with anxiety. Each step she took felt monumental, reverberating through the very fabric of her resolve. She realized the hours spent in her dimly lit attic weren't merely warm-ups, they were declarations of fierce determination, a fight against the silence that had held her captive. Once inside, she was met with vivid colors and vibrant enthusiasm. A cascade of artists filled the room, their canvases bursting with life. Her heart raced while she searched for Robert, his presence looming like thunderclouds on a sunny day. They had a history intertwined with both admiration and discontent, a partnership steeped in conflict that now appeared sharper against the colorful backdrop of her creations. To the side, she spotted her canvases displayed prominently. Each artwork was a fragment of her journey, a visceral testament of trials, revelations, and an emotional whirlwind. Varied strokes captured her fluctuations in self-esteem, brilliant colors imbued with the passion she had refrained from expressing for years. Had Robert seen her work? Did he understand the tumult of emotions condensed within each piece? As she maneuvered through the crowd, conversations flitted by, but Emily was absorbed in her own thoughts. Maybe this wasn't solely about Robert's judgment. Maybe it was about herself, her ability to embrace vulnerabilities, her fierce desire to succeed not just for her family but for her own soul's evolution. Then she saw him, Robert, crafted in confidence, engrossed in discussion about someone's piece. An unsettling sense of nostalgia washed over her. This was the mentor who had once nurtured her dreams, yet simultaneously exposed her insecurities. Words unsaid danced on the tip of her tongue, each filled with the latent strength that had built within her over the past weeks. Could she truly unveil her metamorphosis? As their eyes met, her heart thumped loudly, punctuating the silence that surrounded them. This was her moment, the threshold of her confrontation. What would unfold when she finally addressed not just him, but the whispers of self-doubt that had pervaded her existence for far too long? The question lingered in the air as she approached Robert, the remnants of uncertainty battling against her conviction. With each step, she realized her journey transcended this exhibition. It was about facing the very essence of who she was meant to be. But as she initiated the conversation, an unexpected voice from the crowd interrupted, igniting a new wave of unpredictability. The stakes were higher than she had anticipated. Could she endure the revelation that was about to unfold? Emily paused, her focus shifting momentarily from Robert to the interruption echoing through the crowded room. The voice, brimming with enthusiasm, was captivating, calling out for attention. She turned slightly, her heart still racing, torn between the urge to engage with this unexpected speaker and the necessity of confronting Robert. "Excuse me, can I have your attention? I promise you, just 1 hour a day can transform not only your art but your entire life," the speaker shouted, gesturing dramatically to a nearby canvas. Emily felt a flicker of irritation. She had come here to deliberate her worth, not to listen to someone hawking a one-size-fits-all solution. However, a small part of her was intrigued. Was it really possible that an hour each day could reveal something more profound? Wouldn't it be wonderful to unlock new aspects of herself? The burning need to confront Robert re-emerged, but this notion planted itself within her, flowering into curiosity. Returning her gaze to Robert, she found him still engaged in conversation, hardly glancing her way, as if she were another face in the crowd. A wave of disappointment washed over her. Was she invisible? Or perhaps, was she still cloaked in the shadows of her doubts? The whirlpool of inadequacy threatened to drown her, but she fought against it. This was her moment, not his. Yet, as Emily contemplated her next move, the speaker continued to weave stories of transformation, punctuated by impassioned claims that felt almost prophetic. Each word seemed to tug at the fabric of her determination. She pondered the phrase "just 1 hour." 1 hour, she reflected, was a manageable investment in her growth. It wouldn't take away from her responsibilities, it could align with the fringes of her life, reshaping the contours of her identity. Feeling emboldened, she stepped forward, cutting through the throng of onlookers. She felt a surge of agency. If she could embrace this moment, perhaps she could finally step into the fullness of who she was meant to be. As she approached Robert again, she halted, reconciling the nagging residual fear. "Robert," she said with a newfound steadiness. He turned, surprise flickering in his eyes. "I'm ready to talk about my work." The air shifted, thickening with unbound tension. Robert's expression became unreadable as he studied her, but Emily held her ground, bracing against the tempest of vulnerability rising inside her. This wasn't merely about seeking validation from him. This was a declaration of her personal evolution, lit by the small spark ignited by the speaker's words. "I want to hear your thoughts, not just because you're my mentor, but because it matters to me. My art, my voice, everything I've created was part of a journey to reclaim what I thought was lost," she continued, her voice steady despite the thrumming in her chest. Robert opened his mouth, then paused, as if weighing the impact of his response carefully. The cacophony of the crowd faded, leaving only the two of them suspended in this fragile moment of honesty and anticipation. She caught a flicker of recognition in his gaze, and for the first time, she felt that her confrontation was not only about art, but about the reclamation of her own power. Would he acknowledge her transformation, or would his answer unleash more doubts? The stakes were higher than ever. With every fiber of her being, she awaited his response. What revelation awaited her in his words? Would they lead her further down the path of self-discovery, or would they bind her once more in the chains of doubt? The room buzzed around her, but Emily's world focused solely on what Robert was about to say, and she held her breath in anxious anticipation. Emily, Robert finally spoke, his voice measured yet carrying an undeniable weight. It's remarkable that you're here, ready to take this step. But you should know that transformation doesn't come from simply talking about it. It demands commitment and unmistakable effort. Her heart raced at his words. Were they encouragement or a warning? Emily couldn't decipher the weight behind his gaze. Did he truly see her willingness to change, or was he holding on to evidence of her past hesitations? She inhaled deeply, determined not to let his tone derail her newfound momentum. You're right, Robert. Each word felt monumental as she spoke them. I know it takes effort. I'm not just talking about pursuing art, I want to confront the self-doubt I carry like a shadow. For a brief moment, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it respect? He leaned forward slightly, as if her declaration had ignited a spark of interest. Self-doubt is powerful, more so than art itself, he said, guiding the conversation into deeper waters. What will you do with that insight? Are you prepared to sacrifice comfort in the pursuit of your passion? Emily felt a rush of determination course through her. There was no point in retreating now, especially not when his question forced her to confront the underlying fear that had held her captive for far too long. I am prepared. I want to dedicate an hour each day to my art, to challenge myself and unravel the potential I've been sitting on for years. Not just to confront my self-doubt but to defy it, she said, her voice threading through the surrounding noise. The slightest smile tugged at the corners of Robert's mouth, enticing yet enigmatic. An hour a day, dedicated to your craft and self-reflection. That's a start, but it must be intentional. The question is whether you'll hold yourself accountable. His sharp gaze pierced through the scattering of people, and in that instant, Emily felt utterly exposed. Why not approach this dedication with a bit of structure? In fact, I'll help you. Let us outline what an hour can accomplish each day, he suggested, leaning back, an appraisal evident in his posture. Emily hadn't expected such encouragement, yet doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. Would she be able to maintain this schedule? What challenges lay ahead? But there was something invigorating in Robert's proposal, a chance to build a framework for her revival. What if I? She hesitated, considering her next words carefully. What if I structure that hour around things I've neglected? Sketching, journaling thoughts about my art, exploring new techniques? Things that not only cultivate my work but also nurture my confidence? He nodded slowly, appreciation mingling with intrigue across his features. Those are excellent starting points. It sounds like you're ready to engage not only in creating art but also in understanding yourself more deeply. His emphasis on understanding struck a chord within her, a glimmer of revelation. As they continued brainstorming, her mind raced ahead, weaving future possibilities into a colorful tapestry of intention. For the first time, envisioning her progress felt almost tangible. But just as her excitement soared, her inner critic stirred. Would those daily hours become just another forgotten promise? She wrestled with the prospect, caught between optimism and the paralyzing weight of her self-doubt. Robert, I can commit to this, but are you willing to check in with me? I need to be held accountable, she asked, the challenge of seeking support almost overwhelming. A nod from him reassured her, a pact forming in the pulsating atmosphere of the room. Consider it done. But remember, Emily, accountability means embracing discomfort. It'll push you. As they concluded their conversation, she felt a small yet mighty wave of resolve wash over her, defying the incessant pull of her fears. Could 1 hour truly recalibrate her identity? Yet in the depths of her mind loomed questions, echoing back to her. What would happen if that hour revealed shadows she wasn't prepared to face? Would she falter or unlock doors she hadn't dared to open? Emily left Robert's side, her heart pounding with anticipation and apprehension. The balance of her creative journey hung in the balance like a taut string, ready to snap or sing with newfound resonance. With a fresh direction instilled in her thoughts, she stepped away, prepared for the revealing moments ahead. But as she exited, the unease nagged at her. What hidden truths lingered just beneath the surface of her commitment? The hour would soon manifest, and within that time, would it be enough to unravel the complexity of her doubts, or would it cast everything into unsettling clarity? Only time would tell as she embarked on this transformative journey. Emily stood before her easel the next morning, the first light of dawn filtering through her window. The muted colors of her studio appeared almost foreign, remnants of a time when she merely occupied the space rather than claimed it. Today was different. Today marked the beginning of a commitment that felt as monumental as it was daunting. She hesitated, clutching her paintbrush in a grip that conveyed both enthusiasm and apprehension. An hour each day seemed so simple, yet the act of isolating that time felt like an invitation to unravel the very fabric of her existence. She placed the brush onto the canvas, unsure of where to begin. Would she just fall back into old habits, or would this hour be the crucible of her transformation? With a deep breath, she recalled Robert's insistence on structure. That glimmer of understanding she felt in his office repeated in her mind, urging her to take action. She reached for her journal, flipping to a blank page, and began to list her intentions. Sketching, journaling, experimenting, each outline task seemed to pulse with promise. But beneath that glimmer was a flickering doubt: was she truly capable of reawakening her artistry? As she jotted down each point, shadows of insecurity crept in. What if her sketches fell flat, lacking the vibrancy she craved? Would her fear of inadequacy congeal into inaction? Her heart raced, and she found herself caught between the desire to create and the suffocating weight of self-doubt. Time slipped away, like sand through her fingers. Before long, she faced a blank canvas again, but this time with a bit of resolve ignited by her earlier intentions. Emily launched into sketching a landscape that had captivated her last summer. The thought slipped away as her hand moved instinctively over the paper. A fleeting sense of freedom washed over her. Yet, as the pencil glided, an unexpected doubt took hold. What if this moment of authenticity shattered as quickly as it had begun? Was this the point where she would falter, or was she genuinely en route to rekindling her passion? After an hour passed in what felt like both a heartbeat and an eternity, Emily finally stepped back from her work. The landscape remained unfinished, raw in its essence. A mixture of pride and disappointment swirled within her. At least she had shown up. But could showing up be enough? She noted down her reflections from the experience. The act of confronting her canvas had revealed more than artistic choices. It also uncovered layers of emotion she had neglected for too long. There was something insightful within the rawness of her sketches, something worthy of exploration. The next day brought a similar battle. This time, however, she entered her creative hour wishing not only to create but to interrogate her insecurities. Holding her sketchbook felt both liberating and weighty, a paradox echoing within her. The hour spent painting morphed into a confrontation with her self-imposed barriers. Each stroke became a question: who defined her art? Who dictated her worth? The urgency to challenge these narratives spurred her to create with boldness. Still, the specter of her past lingered, teasing notions of failure and reinforcing a familiar cycle of hesitation. If I continue this, she thought, deliberating on what she observed within her own art, how do I prevent it from spiraling into self-sabotage? As weeks rolled on, each hour required a negotiation with herself. To engage deeply meant wading into waters fraught with both creativity and insecurity. Ironically, the process of revealing her art pulled the layers of her identity into stark contrast. What was the source of her creativity? Was it the fear that held her back, or could it be the very catalyst she needed? In one session, Emily painted an abstract representation of her anxiety, a swirling chaos of colors colliding yet somehow finding a semblance of order. It was as if she were physically expressing the tumult of self-doubt she had wrestled with for years. As she mixed those oils, she didn't just feel a catharsis, she uncovered an essential truth about her evolution. With brushes in hand, she began to question everything. What if her art was not merely an extension of her fears but a release of them? What if embracing her inner critic could actually turn that voice of doubt into a source of strength? That evening, she would meet with Robert to share her progress and frustration, eager for his insights. But as she prepared for their conversation, a new apprehension bloomed within her. She was about to lay bare her vulnerabilities for judgment. What if revealing her journey reflected not strength but weakness? The anticipation of their meeting weighed heavily, challenging her to examine whether the hours spent creating would translate into personal revelation or remain a hastily constructed facade. What awaited her in Robert's assessment? Would their conversation illuminate her path, or would it expose limitations she wasn't prepared to face? She braced herself, the tension thick in the air. Her evolution teetered once again on the precipice of uncertainty. Emily entered the cafe where she would meet Robert, her heart pulsing in her chest like a drumbeat of anxiety. The warm aroma of coffee blended with the soft murmur of conversations, creating an atmosphere that should have felt comforting. Instead, it served only to amplify her internal turmoil. She scanned the room, searching for a stronghold in her anxiety. The moments leading up to the conversation loomed large in her mind, each attachment of doubt binding her more tightly. As she settled into her seat, emotions roiled within her. Was this meeting merely an assessment of her artistic journey, or would it serve as a mirror reflecting her failures? For the first time in weeks, Emily confronted the horror she had kept at bay, her fear of being perceived as less than worthy. The soothing cadence Robert always maintained now felt ominous, a judging echo that might tear down her burgeoning confidence. After what felt like an eternity, Robert arrived. His presence was calm, confidence radiating from him, yet Emily couldn't escape the feeling that it highlighted her own uncertainties. As he sat down, Emily skirted around the core of her anxiety, her words stuttering through fragmented thoughts. She spoke about her commitment, her struggles, and the sketches that had emerged from her hours of work, but a pit formed in her stomach as she hesitated. Did these efforts even matter? Robert listened intently, and as she finished describing her feelings, an unexpected silence hung between them. "It sounds like you're on the cusp of something transformative," he stated. His voice was steady, yet each word felt like a challenge to Emily's deeply held beliefs. Could she truly believe that the chaos she had created on canvas represented a deeper knowledge blooming beneath the surface? What if my efforts aren't enough? What if they are simply fragments of an artist who once was? She blurted, vulnerability spilling over the carefully constructed facade she had built up in her mind. Robert leaned forward, fixing her with a penetrating gaze that seemed to parse her fragile facade. "Emily, the artist you think you've lost doesn't exist in some idealized state. She is every stroke, every doubt, every moment you choose to create. The real question is not about what you create, but how you relate to it." His words struck her like a lightning bolt, both illuminating and frightening. Was it possible that her entire understanding of worth was tethered to misguided perceptions? The concept tangled in her mind, a revelation in the shadows she had dreadfully overlooked. As she returned home that evening, Emily's hands trembled with anticipation and fear. The hours she had started devoting to her art felt less like a conscious choice and more like the dawning realization that it was a necessary rite of passage. Those motions on canvas were not merely strokes of paint, they were pieces of her identity emerging from the cocoon of her past. When she stepped into her studio that night, a whirlwind of determination surged within her. She pulled out her previous landscapes, now viewable through a newly painted lens of understanding. Discontent buzzed beneath the surface, whispering unresolved fears into her ears, urging her away from progress. But now fully aware of that inner dialogue, she became fierce in her decision to confront it. Each stroke became an act of defiance. She questioned each hue, each form, daring them to challenge her insecurities. What emerged in that session was not just art, but proof against her self-doubt. Would this prove to be a recovery, or would it reveal yet unacknowledged limitations? Could she break through the threshold where fear transformed into an empowering catalyst? As the hours wore on, Emily experimented with colors and shapes, reveling in both the discomfort and invigorating feedback of her process. The abstract swirl of her feelings visually unfolded before her. It seemed chaotic yet surprisingly profound. Amidst this creation, she reached a sudden plateau, a frantic urge within her pushed for clarity. What did she truly wish to communicate? What were the themes that echoed most intensely within her? Just then, a thought struck her with illuminating clarity. What if my tribulations are the very canvas of my evolution? The notion felt electric, but also perilous. Could laying bare her struggles actually become her strength? With renewed fervor, Emily dove deeper into this newfound perspective, driving her brush like a vessel navigating uncharted waters. But just as clarity began to unfurl, shadows lurked on the horizon. Who would she become by embracing this chaotic blending of her reality? It left her wondering, was she ready to embrace the change stemming from her art, or would she retreat into the safety of novelty? Every stroke began to crystallize a narrative she had long avoided confronting. With a deep breath, she took a step back, heart racing in her chest. The gravity of the emerging image, a raw reflection of her transformation, might bring her face to face with a path unknown. Would she have the courage to explore it? Before she could meditate further on this profound pivot, Emily froze. A knock at the door startled her. Who could it be? The sudden intrusion pricked her curiosity about how this could alter her narrative yet again. Who was waiting beyond that door, and how would they impact her journey? Emily's heart raced, not knowing whether to feel afraid or intrigued by the unexpected knock. She stepped cautiously to the door, momentarily forgetting the chaotic brushstrokes that had consumed her thoughts. As she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Standing there was Julia, an old art school acquaintance whose essence defined the carefree creativity Emily had once longed for but thought she had lost. "Emily! I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by," Julia beamed, her greeting wrapped in genuine warmth. Yet Emily felt the walls of her carefully reconstructed reality tighten around her. Julia seemed a shimmering contrast to the tumultuous journey Emily had navigated. "Hi, I'm glad to see you," Emily managed, ushering Julia inside, though her mind spun with many questions. Could this encounter divert her focus, or would it fuel the doubts she had just begun to unravel? "Is it a bad time?" Julia asked as she surveyed the paint-splattered chaos that surrounded them. "No, not at all. I've just been, working on some things," Emily replied, her words faltering, feeling the weight of vulnerability creeping back. Inviting Julia into her sanctuary felt like inviting scrutiny, as if her art might somehow betray the complexity of her internal evolution. Julia's gaze landed on Emily's latest canvas. "Wow, this is amazing. I can see the raw emotion in it." "You've really poured yourself into this," she exclaimed, genuine admiration breaking through. "But is it enough?" Emily blurted, the question escaping her mouth before she could quell it. "What if I'm just stuck in this fog of confusion?" "Enough? Who defines that?" Julia leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. "You know, I have my struggles. Last week, I threw out a dozen sketches because they didn't live up to my expectations. It's tough. But what if we focus not on the end product, but the journey? Every line and color speaks to experiences we've lived." Emily felt a flicker of recognition. Julia's authenticity echoed her own growing understanding. Art wasn't merely a finished piece, it was a manifestation of thoughts and feelings that demanded space to exist. Julia's words were a mirror, reflecting possibilities Emily had almost dismissed. "Do you think I could ever really embrace those messy tribulations?" Emily questioned, fear lacing her voice. "Of course," Julia insisted, her animated expression driving home the conviction. "The most powerful art comes from being raw and real. Think about it. If you hide behind perfection, you lose the depth of connection. Isn't that what you want to connect with others through your story?" Emily leaned against her desk, captivated. The notion of connection resonated deep within her, a desire to share not just the beauty, but the chaos of life as well. It was an unsettling yet exhilarating prospect. What if she shed the fear of judgment and allowed her wounds to color and shape her creations? How do you do it? Face the fear of showing vulnerability? Emily asked, curiosity mixing with admiration. Honestly? I still battle with it every day. It's about embracing discomfort. You find strength in the moments of doubt, Julia shared, and there was a weight in her gaze that spoke of shared experience. Art is an exploration of those tumultuous moments. It reveals who we are and who we aspire to be. So why not let it be a reflection of that? As realization seeped into Emily's consciousness, a spark ignited both fear and excitement. Julia's insight became a catalyst, pushing her to ponder how far she was willing to extend that exploration. Would she dive deeper into her vulnerabilities and confront the stories festering within, or would she retreat once again into safety? The two women continued to exchange thoughts and memories of their shared past, a bond forged in the vulnerability of their artistic paths. With each laugh and shared story, Emily felt fragments of herself piecing together, unearthing long-dormant courage. But then a shadow crossed Emily's mind. What if her artistic revival meant severing ties with her past self? With each exhilarating concept Julia introduced, Emily wrestled with her identity as an artist and who she would become in the wake of artistic freedom. Just as clarity began to settle amidst the chaos, her phone buzzed violently, breaking the enchantment of their conversation. Emily glanced at the screen, her heart sinking as she read the message. It was a notification about an upcoming exhibition, a platform she had once dreamed of and felt utterly unprepared for. The reality of that opportunity mingled with uncertainty. Would embracing her authentic emotional journey empower her to step onto that stage, or would it shatter her newfound resolve? As Emily's breath quickened and her pulse raced, she felt the tension swell within her. The time had come to confront not only the questions about her art, but also the fierce demands of her newfound identity. With a deep breath and Julia's encouraging presence beside her, she realized she stood at a pivotal junction. Would she embrace the challenge, confront the raw and untamed parts of herself, and seize that opportunity for growth? Or would she allow fear to dictate her next steps? The moment of truth was edging closer, and within, a fierce determination began to bloom. Would she dare to step toward her own authenticity, or would she remain in the shadows of self-doubt? As the phone slipped from Emily's fingers, clattering onto the floor, her heartbeat surged, echoing in her ears like a war drum. The exhibition notification had shaken her contemplative space, awakening a tempest of indecision. Julia, sensing the shift, leaned in with a mixture of concern and encouragement. "Hey, what is going on?" Julia asked, her voice steadying in contrast to the storm brewing inside Emily. "It's the exhibition," Emily confessed, her throat tight. "I used to dream about this opportunity, but now the thought of it terrifies me. I don't know if I'm ready." "Then don't rush into it. Just take time to understand what it means for you," Julia replied, her hands gesturing as though sculpting the air around them. "Art is deeply personal. If you're not feeling it, maybe you're rushing into something that should evolve organically." Emily's initial instinct was to push back, but Julia's words lingered in the room. This was not just about opportunity, it was about growth, her journey, and the authenticity she was starting to embrace. Could she truly convey her inner world in a raw way that would resonate with others? Julia continued, "Overcoming self-doubt is part of the artistic process. Embrace that uncertainty. It's what makes your story unique." The assurance in Julia's voice began to seep into Emily's frayed nerves. Maybe this was the moment to confront her apprehension, not shy away from it. But what if this confrontation meant exposure? The room felt tighter, like walls closing in as she balanced between the yearning for transformation and the safety of familiar patterns. "Being vulnerable is terrifying," Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if people don't connect with it, or worse, if they do? If I release my past and the wounds that shaped me, what remains?" Julia's eyes softened. "What remains is your truth, Emily. That's what people resonate with. Authenticity cuts through the noise, it's raw, and it's real." Emily watched as Julia spoke, captivated by her unwavering confidence. Would she be able to craft a bridge between her fears and her aspirations? The thought stirred a flicker of rebellious determination within her. "I've spent so long hiding behind what I thought was acceptable," Emily reflected aloud, now feeling the cascading weight of realization. "If I take that stage, I have to drop that persona entirely. I know that means risking failure. The fear of getting knocked down again is almost paralyzing." "True, but consider the chance of soaring instead," Julia encouraged. The possibility of soaring sparked something primal inside Emily. In that moment, doubt coiled around her, but so did the hint of resolve. Could she weave her moments of confusion and struggle into something that not only revealed her scars, but celebrated them? "Perhaps I need to turn this fear inside out," Emily contemplated. "Might it be a source of strength instead, like a wound that transforms into artistry?" "Exactly," Julia exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable. "Let your art serve as both an anchor and a sail. It can guide you through the storm while keeping you grounded. You've lived through this, and that story alone is powerful." As they spoke, A framework began to take shape in Emily's mind, the idea of approaching her work not as a pursuit of perfection but as an exploration of a shared human experience. Could she allow her audience to journey with her through her vulnerabilities? The thought invigorated her. Maybe I can sketch some ideas for the exhibition, no pressure. Just to see where this can lead, Emily suggested, her fingers itching to reach for the brush again. The impulse felt liberating, enticingly fragile, like a newly revealed bud daring to bloom. But even as she spoke, a pang of concern nipped at her resolve. What if she put herself out there only to crumble under the weight of expectations, her own or those of others? The paradox of vulnerability versus protection swirled in her mind, each side grappling for dominance. Would embracing this path reveal the depths of her artistry or expose her to greater scrutiny? As Emily's thoughts began to crystallize into a tentative plan, her heart thudded with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Could she be brave enough to reach out beyond the confines of her fears? She stood now at a precipice, ready for the plunge but aware of the depth lurking below. In the silence following her decision, Emily grasped the paintbrush from her desk, feeling its weight, a tangible connection to both possibility and trepidation. The moment had come to express the complexities of her existence. Could she paint the essence of her doubts, her fears, and her aspirations? Would she be able to frame her journey of self-discovery into art that spoke not just to her, but to anyone who dared to feel? As the blank canvas loomed before her, illuminated by the afternoon light, the question echoed louder than any fear: if she chose to embrace vulnerability, what radiant truths could emerge from her introspection? Just then, a new notification pinged on her device, this one heralding challenges beyond the gallery walls. A renowned critic would be at the exhibition, and the stakes just rose. The time had arrived to challenge not only herself but also the narratives that had constrained her. Would Emily step into this uncharted territory, or retreat once more into the comforting chaos of self-doubt? The stakes were high, but so was the potential for transformation, and with trembling hands, she took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever awaited. The exhibition day dawned bright and promising, yet for Emily, it felt like standing at the edge of a tightrope stretched high above the ground. She had dedicated countless hours to her art, all under the watchful eye of her burgeoning self-confidence. But this moment felt exponentially larger than the composition she'd created. It loomed with the expectations of her past, present, and future intertwined. Through all the sketches and paint-stained nights, Emily had evolved from a hesitant artist into a woman fiercely committed to confronting her self-doubts. Each brushstroke became not just an expression of color, but a testament to her transformation, a declaration that her voice mattered. Now, as she meticulously adjusted the arrangements of her artwork, she felt an electric surge of empowerment tinged with a hint of insecurity. What if, beneath the surface of all this hard work, the trembling remnants of her fears lingered too closely for comfort? Stepping into the gallery was like walking through the gates of a new realm. The air vibrated with anticipation, and the spectacle of art unfolding around her took her breath away. Yet, amidst the vibrant creations, her heart raced. Would anyone resonate with hers? She felt small despite the magnitude of her work. The overhead lights glimmered on the polished walls, casting a warm glow over her pieces, but it was the specter of criticism that haunted her thoughts. She could already feel the judgment from the familiar faces, and in the center stood Robert, the mentor of her past, seemingly fortified in an impenetrable armor of critique. Emily recalled their previous encounters, the weight of his gaze twirling a maelstrom of anxiety within. What if he still saw her as the unsure artist who had faltered under his scrutiny years ago? Would that same fear bind her with self-doubt again? But as her gaze swept over the canvases she'd hung, something fundamental shifted within her. The fabrics of her journey, the struggles, the moments of vulnerability, the commitment to self-care and dedication to her art wove together into her present reality. The fear that had once paralyzed her was now a flickering ember, not extinguished but transformed into fuel for empowerment. Taking a deep breath, Emily approached her first piece, a bold abstract representation of her evolution. Swirls of color were layered with raw emotion, capturing her journey of reclaiming not only her artistic voice but also her identity as a whole. There was a soft hum of conversation from attendees dissecting the artwork, and Emily couldn't suppress the swell of pride. Each remark, each glance, reflected potential connectivity. Beyond mere critique, people were engaging with her experiences. The turning point came when Julia stepped up beside her, admiration gleaming in her eyes. This piece is stunning. The way you've expressed your journey of self-discovery is palpable. Have you considered how many people will resonate with this? The affirmation ignited something within Emily. The weight of expectation began to lift, and in its place blossomed a deepening awareness. Art wasn't a mere reflection of ideas, it was a dialogue, a bridge forged between creator and observer. This realization urged her forward, past the frailty of her insecurities and into the realm of genuine connection. As the evening unfolded, Emily found herself surrounded by curious souls, sharing stories and sparking dialogue about the thematic undercurrents in her work. Conversations waxed and waned, each interaction a step further into authenticity. The nervous flutter in her chest settled into a gentle beat, synchronized with the rhythm of shared vulnerabilities. Then, she spotted Robert across the room, his eyes scanning her works with a calculated intensity. Yet beneath the surface of scrutiny, she glimpsed something unexpected: respect. Gaining courage from the blessings of the attendees surrounding her, she strode towards him, heart-pounding but resolute. "Robert," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "What do you think?" He turned to her, an inquisitive expression softening his features. "Emily, I see the depth of your journey reflected in these pieces. They speak to resilience, the power of vulnerability, and the relentless pursuit of purpose." She felt the air shift. Validation hung heavy between them, like a thread woven with all those past uncertainties now transformed into strength. "Thank you," she replied, the words imbued with honesty. "I'm honored to see this evolution," he continued, genuinely. "You've confronted your fears, embraced your narrative, and allowed that to inform your art. Keep pushing those boundaries. Don't retreat into comfort." With every word, the shadows of self-doubt began to recede, replaced by clarity and recognition. She was more than just a reflection of her past, she had become the embodiment of growth, capable of defining her own path. As the evening unfolded, Emily experienced a profound shift to reconciliation with her journey, her fears, and her aspirations. She realized that each moment of struggle colored the palette of her identity, crafting not only the artist she was now but also the woman she was evolving into. This exhibition was not merely a culmination but a launchpad, a powerful statement of conviction proclaimed through her art. Minutes turned into moments, and the gallery buzzed with energy, each conversation a tributary leading to the realization she had conquered not just the exhibition but the very fears that had shackled her spirit. In that moment, under the bright lights illuminating her canvas, Emily reveled in the completion of this journey, feeling a sense of wholeness she hadn't dared to imagine possible. She understood that the artist she always aspired to be existed within her, no longer a distant reflection in a gallery of might-have-beens. With renewed purpose ignited in her heart, Emily stepped out into the world, eager to embrace each day as a canvas worth painting. No longer held back by fears and insecurities, she prepared herself to explore this new chapter one brushstroke, 1 hour at a time, affirming her transformation into the creative force she was always meant to be. Now, as we draw this story to a close, I urge you to take action. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm you need to show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, we want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them discover their own hidden power.